My name is Jeff Jewett, and I've been building guitars and finishing furniture for well over 35 years. Early on in my furniture finishing career, I was introduced to the idea of using a cyanoacrylate or superglue to fix finishes on furniture. Well, I tried it out on a couple of pieces, and to tell you the truth, the results were not very good. In fact, that's when I got really good at stripping furniture. The thought never occurred to me of using these products, particularly on a guitar, but a couple years ago, I was approached by Rick Rosenberg at one of the guitar conventions, and he urged me to just try it out. I tried several of the products out, and quite honestly, I was floored. I have never had such good luck with simple and easy repairs to finishes on guitars than with these products. Earlier this year, I did a video on how to do a polyester and two-component urethane finish on a guitar, and I used these products extensively throughout that video. What I'd like to show you now is some of the excerpts from that video. I think you'll agree with me by the time that you get through seeing all the excerpts that these products really are the game changer that Rick Rosenberg talks about. In the past, to fill these small imperfections on polyester, I've used a lot of different types of superglue products, and they'll all work okay. Lately, however, I've been using the products made by GluBoost. I used their Fill and Finish Thin formula, and then I used their Dry Accelerator. According to the manufacturer, the superglue is made a little bit more flexible than traditional superglue products, and as a result, that makes it easier to level sand. This product, the Dry Accelerator, is definitely a game changer though. It's a dry gas, and when it hits the superglue, it won't foam it. And more importantly, if you do this procedure on the final finish, in other words, when you're done applying the lacquer or the polyurethane top coats, it won't mark the finish. That's a big deal. Now the other things I'm going to use a razor blade, and I'm going to show you how to modify this a little bit so we can use this to level. And then I'm going to use a corian block. This is a small piece of corian, and I got it from a corian manufacturer that's just down the road from me. When you buy GluBoost, you should receive an extender tip and a whip tip. I've installed one each of these. We'll use that so that we can apply a pinpoint application of this product. Simply apply it to the area that you want to fill. I'm finding a couple more areas here. And then over here, there's a small area in the actual abalone. And I'll just go ahead, and in case the fingerboard extension doesn't cover these, I'll fill those too. Then just hit it with a little blast of the accelerator and wait about 5 minutes. Don't start sanding it right away. That's really important. When that superglue is hardened, I'll take a fresh single-edge razor blade and I'll put one wrap of tape around each edge. Now, this is 3M Precision Masking Tape, which is a thin tape. Don't use the blue painter's tape or the green tape. Use a tape that's fairly thin. Otherwise, the center part of the razor blade will be up too high and it won't really start to level that superglue very well. The purpose of this is just to get the high spots of the superglue down. That's the sound you should hear. You should also see scrapings coming off the center of the razor blade right there. Remember, the goal of the scraping with a razor blade is not to flatten it completely. It's just to remove the high spots. You're going to level it with the second step here, which is using some sandpaper with that Corian block I showed you earlier. On the Corian block, I'm going to use the smooth edge to back up against the sandpaper. I'm not going to use a rough edge because that's the areas that I machined. Wrap the sandpaper around it, get it as flat as possible, and holding it firmly on the surface, sand. Now, it's very easy to go through the polyester that's around the repaired area. So be very careful and change directions with your block a lot. If you need to come back with the razor blade, do so. Try to sand just the area, and you can see the shadow outline of the super glue that's remaining. Change directions frequently, which will help you to even out the scratch pattern. You can still see the outline of the super glue around the repaired area. You want to keep sanding until that's gone. You may be wondering why I'm using this hard Corian block to do this instead of the sanding block that I used earlier. Well, rubber sanding blocks, even the hard side, will tend to want to ride up and over that harder super glue fill, and then when it gets to the softer polyester on either side of it, it will kind of dig into it. And the result is that you have a high spot with removed areas of polyester around it. And that's not a good thing at all. Sanding the back of the guitar went very smoothly. I didn't have any problems, but I did notice a small binding gap right at the waist. It's right here. Now, I could leave it alone and try to fill it with polyester during the next stages, but it's a lot easier with those deep binding gaps to fill it with super glue, just like I did the rosette. So I'll go ahead and take care of that area, sand it flat, and then we'll head back into the spray booth to apply the second round of polyester. When you're scraping on an edge like I am here, you really have no support over here for the razor blade. So you just have to kind of hold it as level as you can and scrape. Get it as good as you can without tipping that razor blade, and then just finish up the leveling with the corian block and the sandpaper. Life is good, it's perfect. I hope these show up on the camera, but right here and here, I have two small dings in the mahogany neck. I'm going to show you how I fill those with GluBoost and do the final buff out afterwards so I get an invisible repair. The first thing I do is orient the neck in the vise so the repaired area is going to be flat. I don't want the GluBoost to go dribbling all down the sides and have to do an unnecessary work. Just one light spritz and then walk away for 5 minutes while it dries. Just like before, once it's dry, take your razor blade with the 2 pieces of tape on it and very lightly scrape that till it's flat. You just want to knock off the high spots. Then take your corian block, wrap some 800 grit dry sandpaper around it, and sand it level. Just like before, sand until the shadow of that repaired area is gone. Because this is not a flat surface, I'll take a couple swipes with the 800 grit sandpaper just wrapped around my fingers. Then I'll move on up to P1000, P1200, P1500 grit, and I'll use that wet sanding paper dry this time because it's a lot easier to do. Then I'll go over to the buffer. I just spent about 30 seconds with the buffer, first the medium wheel, then the fine wheel. When I used to teach finishing and repair classes, sometimes a student would ask me, how do you know when you're done with a repair? And I always used to tell them this: when you look and you look and you look again and you can't find the repaired area right away, you're done. Now, in the old days, I used to do that with a drop fill of lacquer. You used to have to drop fill it, let it dry a day, sand it, buff it, and then hope that it didn't shrink. GluBoost makes this a much better repair, and I'm telling you, this stuff is a real game changer.